I would also like to welcome all of those who are indeed associated with the opposition and all other members of the public and special interest groups. I am aware that we will have two presentations on resumption. The first one will be from the African Heritage Foundation, and the presentation will be given by our brother Paul Rock and Felicia Holder. You are invited to come forward. Each presentation is a maximum of 15 minutes. We have a timekeeper. You will first introduce yourself, give a small background on the interest group, and then get into your presentation, all within a maximum of 15 minutes. And you don't mind me calling you, as I know you, as Rasimba.
Just leave it there. First off, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. Greetings to everyone in front of me. My name is Paul Rock, better known as Rasimba. I am the president and founder of the African-centered charity African Heritage Foundation. We are a community-based organization. We aspire to assist with the development, empowerment, sustainable empowerment of communities in Barbados through education, through agriculture, basically all the tenets that you would need for building society, a strong society and strong communities. As such, we would like to make a brief presentation on our thoughts on the Medical Cannabis Bill 2019 as was presented. My first point is that when we speak of medicinal, in terms of medicine, in terms of cannabis, we must speak of the indigenous use of the plant. And I understand what the bill presents is more a pharmaceutical structure where you're standardizing products made from the plant. So say someone had an ailment and they needed a particular dosage, and they can get that within a standard manner. What we are saying is that before you get to the pharmaceutical aspect of the plant, you have to look at the indigenous aspect. This comes with the idea of preventative medicine. We would all, when I look around the room, we're all here African descended people, and we would all have an idea of the use of herbs, fruits, vegetables, roots within our daily health care, especially from our grandmothers, and that generation coming forward. Cannabis is part, the plant as we know it is a herb, and it's part and parcel of that. What we're saying, indigenous use should be added onto the bill, where people in the community would have the opportunity to use the whole plant as they see fit, the same way they would use orange, the same way they would use turmeric, garlic, anything like that. It also adds then for the possibility of community development and empowerment, in that there are a lot of medicinal wellness byproducts that can be made, soaps, skincare, a whole lot of different things that can be made by people in the community, sold among themselves, and economic generators, so to speak. So we see that as very important in terms of when you're stating that it is a medical cannabis bill. To me, you have to start at the first. And before there was pharmaceutical, if you understand the history of cannabis, cannabis was a part of 60% of all medicine that was made, even home remedies and things like that. It is the pharmaceutical industry that actually helped to outlaw the plant so they can develop their products and get that forward. So what I'm saying is that we need to take that into consideration. The second thing, another thing that I wanted to speak about that presents itself on the bill would be the penalties. Although the bill does not state fees for possible licenses, they have all the categories and things, they didn't say what these fees would be, but they did mention what the penalties would be for people that found themselves afoul of the law, and it was something like $100,000 or 10 years in jail. I am saying that that CARICOM commissioned a task force on cannabis, and our present laws, they stated that they were draconian in their findings. And we all know what draconian means. It seems to me that what is going on within the cannabis considerations, so to put it, that the findings of the task force are not being implemented or, acknowledged, so to speak. So it seems like a top-down approach where the task force is saying to make this thing really work in the community for the benefit of all, it should be a bottom-up approach. And the bottom-up approach starts with, as I was just saying, the indigenous uses of the plant. So we see a problem in that. The minister has made it clear that within the bill that the average Bajan is able to have a stake in the industry. People coming in, investors coming in, have to make 30% of the company available to locals. Local investors 100%, so to speak. Our contention is that that will only satisfy a small amount of the population. And again, you still have to have money to invest, to buy shares or whatever you need to do to be a part of that industry. And if we look at our tourism model, even though a lot of Barbadians are involved in tourism, we have to ask ourselves at what levels are they involved at. That has been my problem with the tourist industry. So we have, I don't know how many hotels in Barbados. If you ask how many are owned by people like me and you, I will gather a few. When I've been to the hotels around the place, I don't really see many white maids. I don't really see white people working at what we call more the domestic level. And I would hate to see that happen within the cannabis industry as well. I worked a little bit in the sugar industry, and one thing I liked about it was that when it was crop time, the small farmer was able to bring in a little bit of cane from his backyard, or if he had a little plot, Because I used to weigh the canes. I was aware, right? So even the big plantation, Redlands, all these people coming with the big trucks, and you will see a little man coming with his little thing, And he is there in the system, and he is able to get a piece of that industry. I think that is a way that more people can get involved. I don't know how many people actually know about the cultivation of cannabis. A small backyard could cultivate a lot of cannabis. Believe you me. You don't take a lot of space. You can probably grow 40, 50 trees in this little space right here and produce a good amount of cannabis. That can be then taken up by the government, or, somebody could take their little thing to somewhere that is processing and being paid for that, something like that. So I think that is something that should be considered. The bill also states about one thing that we're not sure about is people with criminal, what do you call it now? Convictions. They say that they really can't be part of the industry. A lot of us have cannabis convictions that would like to be a part of the industry. So I would like to know if these convictions, what will happen to these people that have cannabis convictions now that we have a cannabis, or we're looking to have a cannabis industry, no matter how you want to phrase it. So I think that that should be made clear. If these people would be made exempt, if their records would be expunged, that needs to be made very clear. Again, 5 more minutes, and this is my last point, and it has to deal with trust. A lot of people do not trust the pharmaceutical industry. A lot of us, when we get sick, our first mode of action will be something natural. Like somebody like me, if when my daughter was sick and she got the fever, my grandmother would say, get some banana leaves and thing and put on and suck out the fever and this and that. If that didn't work, the doctor was the second phase. So I'm saying that when we consider pharmaceuticals turning the cannabis into your capsules and your different things, that there is going to be that trust factor that people are not going to openly trust firsthand the drugs that are being made within the cannabis industry. So I think that is all for me, and I want to rest that there. And I just want to say, closing, and I must say, as Rastafari, because I'm not representing the Rastafari community per se, but as you see, I am a Rastaman in the community. Therein, I represent the community wherever I go. Mr. Bear has made it known that recreational use and sacramental use will be determined by a referendum, a public referendum. And I would like to say that my spirituality, my sacrament should not be determined by a referendum. I know that's something separate, but I would just like that to be considered. I think that is disrespectful, and that is a slap in the face of Rastafari, myself, to have that done. So I thank you once again for the opportunity to be able to speak.
Rasimba, I want to thank you for your presentation. Both of you are from the same organization.
Correct.
You have a presentation as well?
I just wanted to reiterate a few things. Like Simba, I am a part of the foundation, but I am a Rasta woman. And I was observing the persons who were in the audience who would have been coming to the meeting, and I thought it prudent to say something on behalf of Rastafari women. So, with your permission, I would like to do that. Go ahead.
What?
Yes, thank you. So, I just want to reiterate a few things. Simba was speaking about indigenous use, and I've been to quite a few conferences, and the most recent one was put on at UE, and they were talking a lot about anecdotal evidence, and lots of people from Canada would have been saying on the videos and things that they would have been showing about how herb has helped them through different diseases and things that they have. Now, as a Rasta woman and being a part of the culture that is marijuana, I know that we too have anecdotal evidence in Barbados. And I think that that is something that needs to be explored when we are saying that we're embarking on a medicinal cannabis industry. We look to other places for information, for expertise, knowledge, but we have a lot of that here. We have a lot of anecdotal evidence from Rastafari communities, from people, older generations, who would know about indigenous uses of not only herb as marijuana, but herb as in lemongrass and these other things like what Rasimba was saying. And another thing too, he mentioned about the fact that traditionally people tend to distrust pharmaceuticals. And earlier in the year, you guys had mentioned about five things that people could access on the drug formulary. And I am more sure that all five of those things were synthetic. When I Google synthetic, which is what you do nowadays when you don't know something, you Google, synthetic is that it's not natural. So are we looking to, if we're looking to be going along this medicinal cannabis line, I think that synthetic would be defeating the purpose if it is that we are looking to provide something healthier. And additionally, I think that along the lines of where people distrust, traditionally, for my one part, you know, I am not a go to the doctor person. I am a person who will go in my yard and pick some cure for all or a piece of Wonder World. I think that definitely you guys need to explore persons having permission or being able to plant 5, 8 trees for their personal use. Everybody's not going to want to be, you know, exploring going to the doctor. So people should have the option. And I think it's really counterproductive, for lack of a better word, to say that you're having a medical cannabis industry where the government is selling herb and then persons are getting arrested for 5 buys and 10 pieces. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
I don't remember if I said my name.
You can say it,
Felicia
but-
Holder is my name. Yes, please.
Don't move yet, Rasimba. Don't move yet. All right, the matter is up for discussion or comment. Are there, first of all, any comments from the committee? Minister Hinkson.
Oh. Chairman, through you, I would like to probably Ras to expand on the point that he made, yes, under section 32(3) of the bill, person convicted of an indictable offense under the Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act and Proceeds and Instrumentalities of Crime Act and any other similar enactment shall not be eligible for a license. And you indicated you had concerns. In fact, you opposed that provision. And I would want to give you the opportunity to expand on why you don't think there should be that prohibition.
The mere fact that we are here discussing a cannabis bill speaks to something that many of us have been saying for decades, that cannabis has medicinal properties, it belongs in the community, and it belongs to us. Many of us have been rebellious. At the same conference Felicia spoke about, the last one we attended, the rebellious cannabis cultivators are now called legacy farmers, right? So these legacy farmers who the University of the West Indies has approached me through the BIM, the company, the Barbados Medical Cannabis Incorporated, and they want to get knowledge or some information on indigenous strains, things like that, and you have to go to legacy farmers. So at some point in time, these legacy farmers, who most of them have some sort of conviction, I don't know if it's indictable or not, you know, they are being put on into the conversation or considered for the conversation on one level, but yet on another level, they seem to be exempted or excluded rather, excluded from consideration. So I am saying that these people who have in the face of the risking their freedom, their life, have continued the cannabis culture that even the university could now and want to draw some of this information from. I think that they should have the opportunity to be part of the industry, and leaving them out is a terrible, terrible thing. I don't know if that answers the question.
Senator Haynes has the floor.
Thank you, Ras Simba and Ms. Holder, for your contributions. I'm sure that I can speak for the rest of the committee when we say we really value your input this morning. I am a member of the Senate, but I am also a medical doctor. And in my professional life, I have an obligation ethically to first do no harm. And one of the challenges that we as physicians and we who practice Western medicine have with the more traditional use of cannabis is that in large part there's a lack of standardization, research, and predictability as far as we can see. But what I will say is that with the knowledge that members of your community would have, I believe that your input would be very, very useful when everything comes on stream, because there are opportunities to perform research and to fine-tune different formulations. The thing is, there are 3 different species, but over 700 different strains, each with different characteristics and different impacts. And your knowledge combined with ours, I don't see a reason why we can't work together to find a way to operate in the best interest of the citizens with regards to healthcare. So just a little bit on our perspectives. The concerns on our end speak to standardization, predictability, what can be proven, and ultimately making decisions in the best interest of patients. Because as much as we can speak to benefits, there are also certain risks that have to be considered.
While I agree, and I give thanks for that, what I was saying is that your profession looks at what I call after the fact cure. So I have to get sick, then I go to the doctor. What we are looking at within indigenous uses is what I call preventative methods. It's like on the morning you get up, your mother will tell you eat something, fruit or something, so you don't get the cold. Not that you have the cold, so you will eat these things. When I was growing up, I grew up in Trinidad. I had to drink shark oil, a whole lot of nasty taste and things, but they were so I did not get sick. My grandmother had this thing called ZP. I don't know if anybody ever heard of ZP. It's something that the Trinidadians do, right? And they use, most of the time, illegal rum, which we call babash, because babash is illegal in Trinidad, right? You could buy regular rum thing, but rum made in the hills, moonshine, Trinidad moonshine, babash, is still illegal. But my grandmother would take a little bit of babash and she would put like a centipede in it and other herbs and things and let that cure. And every so often we would get a teaspoon of that. Preventative. This is what I am speaking about in terms of the uses of the herbs and things. So I'm not disputing what you're saying. Like when I go to the doctor, I'm just like Felicia. I'm not really a doctor person. But if it has to come to that, I'm going to go to the doctor, see what the doctor has to say. And then I'm going to go, and if I don't know, I have nobody to ask, I can Google, right, and see what is the home remedy. Like I have these things they call liver spots. I only have them now because of little hard ears. But when I had them before, a old lady used to live next door to me and say, Simba, you could drink a little pear leaf and soursop leaf, and that can clear right up. So said, so done. But they're back now because I lost the gazical, and sometimes we eat what you're not supposed to eat, even as Rasta, it's still. But I am, yeah. But it doesn't mean so far, right? But what I am saying is that the minister would know that our food is our medicine. Our primary source of medicine is our food. That is why we're looking into organic production and more healthy production, because we understand that. Herbs, barks. When I have a cannabis plant, I can use the roots. The roots have properties, even the smelly terpenes. Stress is a killer in Barbados. It has been proven that cannabis, in many forms, is a #1 reliever of stress. So I am saying again that consideration should be put for indigenous uses, just like my sister in here said. If we can grow 5 plants, 8 plants, if you want to legislate that and say, well, we have to get like a $200 license, like a car license or a road tax to do that, so you can make money, so be it. I think that the people will be, we would rather it just be free, you know. But we have considerations, we're here, so we're trying to make the compromise. So I'm saying that that should be a way, you know, through the wind. You know, I've heard that licenses can cost like 100,000 up, and you have to do this and that and the fifth and the sixth. What I am saying is that me in my little backyard, I don't have 100,000. I don't want to grow an acre. I just want to grow 5 trees in my thing, in my yard, so I could go out in the morning, pick what I need, use my leaves, my stem, my roots, you know what I mean, my flowers, you know what I mean, I can smell my flowers, have that holistic health. So to me, it's either the bill is called pharmaceutical cannabis, or you include indigenous use of the plant. I heard Mr. Kohol say one time that we have to look at how herbs impact on medicine, on drugs and things. So like if I am on a particular medication from the doctor, right? How would the use of any herb, be it cannabis or not, impact on that? Like I know if I have to go to the dentist, right? I'm not going to use herb because that stick, I ain't gonna feel it. So they gotta stick me too much. So before the dentist, no herb for me. So we understand these things traditionally. We have that education already. We do not need to be re-educated. We've been here for decades using. When I hear the medical professionals say that cannabis affects birth rates and things, I made the joke all the time. I say somebody didn't tell the Rastas, because the Rastas got enough children. You know what I mean? So things like that. So when we hear these things coming from this side of the floor, it doesn't make sense to us because it's not practical within our day-to-day living for decades and decades. And that is not our reality. Thank you.
Sure. I'm confused. Simba, my name is Caswell Franklin. I am probably one of the people who know the least about marijuana. I've never tried it, have no intention of trying it, but my job here is to make sure that if Barbadians get to try it, that it's not going to harm them. There are several strains of cannabis plant, and depending on which strain you use, you can get different substances coming out of it, or more of one substance than the next. Like for instance, I am aware there's a plant called the neem. People use it, they say it lowers your blood sugar and all kinds of stuff. But farmers also use it to, organic farmers use it to poison,
As a pesticide, yes, yeah.
as a pesticide to kill insects. So how are we to know that the particular cannabis that you might want to put in your backyard is going to be the one that won't cause the kind of harm?
Okay.
What kind of harm? I tell them the least
Wait.
knowledgeable person about marijuana. I don't know anything about it.
Any particular
I have-
harm,
I
harm
have-
in general, right? Harm in general, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I would like to say, firstly, that herb cannabis is already legal to most, and it is widely used. Because of the law, a lot of people that use herb don't come out, you know, and things like that. What I am saying is that the indigenous use, if you want to have a standardization, say you have a organization like mine as a community organization, and I would like to get involved in the research part of it. So I would like to be able to develop a strain that would be high in this particular CDB, high in lanolins, high in THC, you know, particular for, you know, and I can work or should be able to work with UV, with knowledgeable people to do that, then to give that education to my community. But on the whole, how we know herb is, we know herb, and again, this comes from a day-to-day experience and living. That there are particular herbs that when a man try this herb and it don't agree with him, he don't like it, it make him feel too sleepy. Like Colombian herb for me. I don't like Colombian herb because it make me feel sleepy. I don't be productive. So I don't deal with that. And there are many reasons for that. So people have to know based on their experience and what they have done. Because it's not like if you use a herb tea from this particular strain, are going to be that detrimental to you. You know, in terms of causing any sort of ailments and thing, you know. They say the biggest, the result of an overdose of cannabis is a good night's sleep, right? And that is a real situation. So if you need something for a particular, if I have a particular ailment, if I suffer from a sleep disorder, and I would like something to know about something, I would like to be able to still get the information to grow the particular strain, so I still have access to it, but I am more comfortable with it because it is me that is planting it and producing it, and I know what I am doing with it. So nobody's telling me that this is organic, but yet they put in some 12-12 and this and, you know, Miracle Grow and these things to boost the plant. So I'm saying that there's an education that can go with it, but overall, the concern is just like to say, well, to me, this is like, say oranges was illegal, and then you all come and say, well, you know what, we're going to make some vitamins that got vitamin C and thing, but you can buy the vitamins, but the oranges are still illegal. But you can't use the oranges because we don't know how the oranges with this, and we got to test the oranges and this and that. So to me, it is nonsensical. When we're speaking about herbal indigenous use, the plants there, they got plants, you know the Jamaican ackee? When you take that, there's a red part of that. If you don't take it, you know that's poisonous. That if you eat that, that is actually poisonous. When I went to Jamaica, I would eat the ackees raw because I would take out the red piece, and the people there were amazed. We know about herbs. It is, I don't know how to explain it further. You know, just like how we know about cooking, just like we have rhythm. You know, we know there are certain things we just know about. Plants is one of these things, you know, as the sister said, I can't remember your name, sorry, that you're dealing with Western medicine and a Western idea versus a traditional African and concept and knowledge, our culture, our heritage.
Yes, tell me something. You said just now that an overdose of marijuana
It's a good night's
is
sleep.
a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
I am aware of people who had an overuse or overdose of it, and they're done Black Rock.
I want to respond to that.
No, let me finish,
Okay.
and then you can respond to both things I'm saying. You see, because I am concerned about people getting their hands on marijuana, and they think that all marijuana is the same, and end up in problems, right? Like for instance, you know the castor oil plant, right? It's supposed to be good to do something. Never good for me. They used to give it to me when I was a little boy, and I couldn't go anywhere. I got to stay at home. But you know the shell that the seeds come in, they make rice in with that. There's a nerve gas that you can kill thousands of people with as much as this pencil point. So I do not want it out there that all these things are so good for you. We have to be able to extract the things that we need from it. And I do not see you extracting the particular substances that might be beneficial from the ones that are harmful in a saucepan. You put them in a saucepan, you steep it, you drink it, you got the harmful stuff, and you get this is my opinion, and this is what you have to convince me of against my beliefs, if you want me to see with you. So if you put the marijuana plant in a saucepan, there are harmful stuff in the leaf, and there are beneficial stuff in the leaf. When I drink that portion, that thing, I'm getting both. So the pharmaceutical people that you might like, they might be able to synthesize the harmful one and separate them and get it. But when you are using the full thing. Explain to me, how is that going to be beneficial when you know that there are substances inside the normal marijuana, not the ones that the people genetically modified, because the medical marijuana is something that genetically modified, you know, to produce what you want it produced. But the one out there growing, I don't know if you can say a wild, because it is farm. I see the police passing my office every day now with trucks full. So explain to me why we should allow people to potentially harm themselves rather than allowing the people who have the pharmaceutical know-how to separate the different substances.
Before you answer, Mr. Rock, Dr. Brown, I want to interject here, Mr. Franklin. I got what Mr. Rock was saying with respect to him being able to be a part of the research. The thing with marijuana is not that he has a bad one and we have a good one. It has something to do with the breeding of the marijuana in terms of regulating the ratios of what you call the good and the bad. Whereas he should be able to contribute to that. I agree with him with the proper training and everything, maybe to associate with a lab. It's not necessarily genetic. It might have something to do with the actual breeding of the plant. I don't know if you agree with me, Mr. Rock. So to say that he would have a strain that is dangerous, I don't know that is entirely fair. You more or less suggested it. This is what I understood. I don't know about the rest of the room.
Hold on. I will come to the audience.
What I am interested, though, in Mr. Rock is, I'm hearing you saying the herbal use of it. Do y'all consider a part of it that you consider to be recreational marijuana? Which is what I think the government and a few of us medical practitioners are afraid of. Mr. Franklin was saying there are people that are prone to psychosis, for instance, genetically with marijuana. Do you consider recreational use, one? And two, how is its use in children considered in your community? That's also my concern. Thank you.
First, I would like to respond to Brother Franklin. Within your body, there's what they call an endocannabinoid system, which means that your body itself is naturally geared to receive cannabis. Just like any food that cannabinoids coming out of the cannabis, right? Just like within any food, all foods having poison, right? So you eat your food, your body processes the food, and then you pass out what the body doesn't need or what is harmful, or you should, when your body is working properly.
Or you cook
Right.
it or whatever to get rid of
Right.
the properties, harmful things.
From as far back as I can think with Victor Roach and those persons, there was this concern about people that have a predisposition to cannabis. There are people that have that to milk.
You call them lactose intolerant.
You know, within anything, there are people that cannot, use that. My girlfriend, my queen, she is gluten intolerant. There is no form of wheat that she can use, right? I don't know if that means that wheat should be illegal, right? I know that sugar, right, which is not regulated, is one of the biggest concerns that Barbados should have within its health industry. From diabetes to obesity to, that doesn't seem to be a big concern. I'm not saying that what you're saying is not, I am saying that my community, because of a law, even though we have daily use, we have not been able to explore the plant in its fullness, to do the research and things. Because when I have to plant weed at 3 o'clock in the morning in the bush, you know what I mean? I cannot explore the fullness and do so what I'm saying that what I would like to do now within a control thing, and then offer that. I don't know if you know, well, you don't know because you say you don't know much about herb. There was a time in Barbados that the herb here was called Bajan green, and it was mostly leaf. And you know that we use more the flower, what we call the bud. So it wasn't very good at all. if you see what the legacy farmers are producing today, under the prohibition, what they have done, you can well imagine what they would do if they were supported by law and had access to UV and thing, and how they could help the industry. So I am saying that part of home cultivation, right? Remember I said before that it could be regulated because we're willing to meet you halfway, right? To say, well, okay, I want to develop a strain that is high in CBDs because there are people in my community, their children have seizures and this and that, and we'd like to be able to help. And by what has been put forward, we can do this. And I can be a part of the industry from my home, right? And thing there as well. To answer the question in terms of use of within children, right, in our community, that mostly goes based on the individual and how they perceive the herb and their information. We have a lot of races that don't advocate use for children. We have races, honestly, that do. I personally think that with a changing of law, remember, we all agree that smoking is not the best method to utilize herb, but it is the most convenient to avoid the law. With a change in the law, then I can change and recreate my usage. Like in Jamaica now, a lot of the youngsters and things do something called steaming, which is not actually burning the herb, right? It is the vapor. You know, like long time you used to get sick and you get some hot water, your mother would put some eucalyptus oil or Vicks and you put your towel on and you get the vape and that will clear. It is the same thing. So like for my, we call it steamers. So within my steamers, I can steam cannabis, garlic, lemongrass, basil, a combination, and that works differently. Now that application is not something that you can take freely onto the street. Because when the policeman me down, it's not like a split I could ball up and thing. It is something, you understand what I'm saying? So to avoid capture, so again, the law makes the use of the cannabis unhealthy. And I am saying that a lot of these practices would change with the availability of the herb. We cannot afford to buy $5 and $10 in herb to go and put in a cup of tea. That would happen if the law changes. The culture of cannabis will change. We have a very skewed cannabis culture that can change with a change in the law and proper education, because we have been miseducated about the plant for a very long time. I don't know if that answered the question.
And to answer your question about recreational, I think recreational is like a misnomer. And I would say the same thing for medical cannabis as well, because all cannabis medicinal. It's just that you put in names onto things now to be politically correct. So for us as Rastafari, we are looking at marijuana from a sacramental perspective, where we could use it in a holistic way, recreational. That answering your question? Okay, goody.
May I just say one thing towards the recreational, because I didn't remember that part of the question. A couple of years ago, I went to Mona to help them produce a radio program called Ganja Talk. This is when they were now getting on stream with their legalization, and they was encouraging everyone to plant 5 plants and things like that. So I had to do a lot of research. One of the things I found out that there is no really such thing as recreational. We're talking about recreation is really a form of stress relief. When we come home from a long day of work, some people can go to the rum shop. Some people like me can go in the corner and play a little dominoes with my wife, to relieve, to unwind. The British West Indian Tobacco Company imported cannabis to Trinidad when they brought the indentured servants, because they realized that the Indians after work made a drink called bang from the plant. And they would enjoy this bang when they played the games. But what it did was to make them even more productive the next day. So the company realized that allowing the cannabis, which was the tradition and the culture of these people, to be brought with them, they actually got more work out of them. As I said before, stress is a killer. Recreational use is really a therapeutic use, which in people use it to relieve the stress. The problem is, when you mix, you hardly find people that would just use cannabis plain by itself, again, because of the law, the black market prices. So you have somebody that would smoke a little spliff, but they're drinking X amount of rum. Something go wrong with them, they say the cannabis. That is what has been happening. Not to mention mixing it with other drugs and, you know. So when you come in, now anything happen is the cannabis. Rum legal, so you can drink rum all the time.
So your opinion on the written research from the Western side, as you might put it, about it saying, I will use recreational, this is what I know, but I understand what you're saying. That the use of marijuana recreationally is associated in younger people with higher school dropouts, more delinquency, more car accidents. What do you say about that research that I would have seen written down, as you say, on Google or everywhere else?
Well, what I have found in my research, we have a website and we have a series called Cannabisification, in which we take a lot of research from all over the world. And a lot of the research that we have seen is that there's been no real increase in road accidents and things compared to alcohol, which is, you know, so I think that alcohol remains the number one cause of family abuse, road accidents, all kind of things. But that is no problem, because that was the concern before prohibition. All the things that are concerning us now about cannabis concerned authorities before, when alcohol was illegal. So what we are saying, that what I have seen is that you can abuse anything, right? You can abuse, you drink too much water, you can drown. You take in too much water, you can drown. Take in too much air, you can choke. You eat too much food, you know what I mean? There is nothing that you can think of. If you can even abuse religion and become a fanatic, and then you see what happens there, right? So we don't advocate abuse. And I think that prohibition and the law has helped with the abuse of the herb, because youngsters by nature are rebellious. Any of us who have children here would know, you tell your child not to do something, that is what they're going to do, because they want to find out why, especially if you don't really have a good explanation, right? And then when these youngsters see that, you know, there are many people, Rastas, other people that they know that use herb daily, and these people are functioning people, they're lawyers, doctors, people are teachers. But then you're telling me that this is going to happen. If I, you know, so they're hearing what you're saying, but you're seeing something different. That creates a confusion. That confusion is problematic.
Just to add to that really quickly, I can't remember what your name is. Right. Dr. Brown was, I think, when you were asking the last thing you asked, I think a part of it is the subculture that comes along with herb because of the prohibition of it. I think that because it is illegal, youths will gravitate to that. So when you say, you mentioned about three things, delinquency, school dropouts, violence, crime. You said crime, not violence. You said crime and something else. But I think that when we look at these things, we have to look at them holistically. So it's not necessarily that it's herb, but it might be something else that leading the children down that line. So that's why I'm saying perhaps it's a subculture. You know, the herb becomes a subculture where it's something that you're gravitating towards, like what he's saying. Simba is saying that you tell the children, no, don't do this, but they can look to do it anyway because they're seeing other things around to them. You know, you got the crime and you got the school dropouts, but it's not necessarily that herb is making them do that. Herb is something that they're gravitating to because of the illegality of it and the prohibition of it. Like
I'm speaking when it became legal in other countries. That is what the research showed.
Oh, that's what you were saying. Mm-hmm. Now, okay.
So that's why I was saying, you know, and as you would know, when you're doing research, some research will be skewed, so you have, some like, much research shows you that a lot of places that have made cannabis legal or decriminalized for recreational use, there's been a drop in crime.
And the last question that you'll get from me, you're all positive with respect to cannabis, more or less. This is what I'm getting from you.
Right, understanding that everything can be abused.
What is your cautionary tale at the end of this? Give me the negative side.
The negative side in terms of cannabis use would be cannabis abuse. And what I see happening now, when I was a little younger, cannabis used to take between 6 to 9 months to grow. That was the biggest deterrent for anybody, the length of time. Now, you can get cannabis growing between 3 to 6 to 4 months, 6 months, sometimes even 6 weeks. So what I have seen is that a whole influx of cannabis that is being produced, and the levels are not being created by nature. They're being man-made, it's being manipulated. So like an example, in London, I was looking at a documentary, and this Rastafari youth, he grew up in a Rastafari family. He grew up with his mother and father, using herb, and everybody was okay. But he is saying now there is a strain of herb in the UK now called Kush that is making the youth angry. It is having a negative impact. So I am saying, this is our concern, right? On the streets, we have something called exotic. A lot of thing,
Overseas.
And I think that is very dangerous. One, I think education, we have not had any proper public education, right? And that leaves the herb to be abused by anyone, young people, especially people in the party thing and, this and that. So I think that a negative is a lack of education on what the herb can do and thing. We all agree that the herb is not agreeable to anyone, so you have to have people that understand that to be able to put out that information as well. So you have to look at both sides and create the balance. And what I am saying that the balance wasn't created because of the law. It was always one-sided. So people can still do it, The real herb is smoking Barbados, I'm telling you. People can still do it, but it would be less harmful to them, if they were educated on what, You have people bringing in things that because of the amount they want to bring, they spraying it with embalming fluid and all. These things harmful to people.
True.
Right? Smuggling is a serious game. And it makes, it makes the use of the thing. So if you can eliminate that and let people feel comfortable with, you don't have to give them a thing. You just want a little thing for themselves.
Oh. Finish? Oh. Thank Oh. I want to thank you, both Simba and Rasholder, if I get it right. Rasholder. Right. Felicia. First of all, I want to give you, Simba, the rested assurance that this committee certainly hear your contribution this morning and will take it into deep consideration. And I want to tell you also that what you're saying about indigenous use of marijuana and what we are purporting for the medical use of medical cannabis are not far apart and dissimilar. You have been using it, or your community has been using it traditionally for the treatment from colds back down to arthritis, to the stimulation of appetite, and you can name it. You have also used the flowers as a poultice, that and the leaves for insect bites. I know that you have used it and for a lot for the rash for the skin. You have used the stalk to help make basketry and you have involved in other forms of using the stalk for other things. I know you use the seeds as well to seep for all types of illnesses, from diarrhea back down to vomiting. And I know that you also have a formulation the eye drops and the glaucoma in some of your community. I'm saying that all these things we are going to use for this way called its medical purposes as well. So we are not speaking two different languages here. What I get though is that you are also speaking about the prophylactic use of marijuana in your community. And I know that there's research going on in the Rastafarian community as it relates to prophylactic use for obesity, for attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and for other ailments like stress for persons who are prone to that. I know that you have used it for its prophylactic usage for that purpose. What I'm saying is that I would implore you to combine your efforts and your knowledge, because you're talking about indigenous marijuana, but you have indigenous knowledge. And I would like you to share that indigenous knowledge with the university and the researchers at the University of West Indies, because that is the only way they will not have that prophylactic knowledge that you would have. And it's important for us going forward in a holistic manner for you to share that knowledge as well. Because although we are talking two different conversations, because what I get from you, you're talking recreational marijuana. Obviously, you're not talking medical marijuana. And I want to say categorically that there are two different conversations here. We are speaking medical marijuana, a drug, a plant produced by a particular seed that is producing one type of product, which is the cannabidiol that the minister alluded to. Right. And you are speaking from another product, which is the natural plant, or you call the recreational plant, is tetrahydrocannabinoid. So which acts on two different types of receptors. And research have shown that the CDB, that acts on the receptors that don't have the psychoactive effects. So we are speaking two different languages in terms of marijuana and its usage. What we can assure you though is that the conversation about recreational marijuana will be taken to referendum, as most such issues. I know that you said earlier that you wouldn't like that to happen, but that is, we live in a broader society, understandably, and other person's views will be taken into consideration. But I want you to with your knowledge, because you have, as I said, a reservoir of knowledge about marijuana usage and its prophylactic usage, and I would like you to take that knowledge and combine it with what we are having at the university, so we can have a holistic understanding of the usage of marijuana going forward. And I want you to continue to do your research and come to us with the information. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, I want to make a correction. Just a correction. This is the second time I'm hearing it, that we will only be dealing with the CDB, but one of the medications on the drug formulary actually has the THC in it. So I just want to make that clear that the drug service will be utilizing both.
Which one that is?
I have it written down, but if Dr. Connell might be here to enlighten you, but we're using both components, even though it may be synthetic, just for correction.
Ms. Jackson from the Attorney General's office has the floor.
Yes, Rasimba Felicia. Just in relation to what was said about the offense section of the bill and your concern in relation to that, I just wanted to bring to your attention that in Jamaica there does exist a similar section whereby minor offenses, minor or dated offenses are not taken into consideration, but serious offenses, which would be indictable offenses, just similar to what is reflected in our bill. That is what obtains in Jamaica right now.
Just can you say over the last part you said again, please?
With respect to the, sorry.
Yes, can you repeat what you said again about what you all are taking into consideration? About offenses and something about what
all I'm simply saying is that in relation to the offense provision in the bill, I believe your concern was that there is an offense provision in relation to indictable offenses, existing indictable offenses under the Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act, as well as any indictable offenses under the Proceeds and Instrumentalities of Crime Act. right? Correct? That was your comment.
Yes.
And I'm just bringing it to your attention that in Jamaica, there exists a similar provision in relation to indictable offenses. So dated as well as minor offenses are not taken into consideration in relation to the licensing, in relation to licensing of medicinal or the licensing criteria. However, indictable offenses are taken into consideration. By indictable, what is meant by indictable is a serious offense. So a serious criminal offense under those two acts that were cited, as well as the equivalent acts in any other jurisdiction that is being considered or contemplated by this bill.
If that is the case, Ms. Jackson, then where the bill says section 32(3), then what we were saying is that that essentially will be excluding a vast amount of people in Barbados who would have been charged under prohibition of the herb for minor offenses, big offenses, small offenses. It say convicted or something like that in the bill, in the cannabis bill, yeah. But I am also saying as well that if that is the case, what the bill is saying, if that holds true, then Minister, we're saying that 30% about every Barbadian having a part of the industry, then that does not hold, because then every Barbadian will not be able to have a part of the industry, because let's say 20% of our male population get arrested for herb, get a charge for herb.
Okay.
Offense is not being contemplated under this bill. Only serious offenses are being contemplated. Hence the word indictable.
So this is what I am saying, and I'd like to address what you said. Again, indictable serious offenses, I understand. So someone that has an indictable offense, say for drug trafficking, right? Importation of a large quantity of cannabis, which would be indictable under law. You know what I mean? But it is the same cannabis, right? That person then is excluded, right? Because that is an indictable offense. You know, it's a serious offense, but it's a cannabis offense, nevertheless. Those are the persons that I am concerned about. Another thing.
Rasimba, before you go on, just pause for a minute. I've heard this on more than one occasion. I think we will spend a lot of time on this when we continue to speak to this as though the majority of Barbadians have an indictable offense, and the majority of Barbadian males have an indictable offense. We really and truly need to recognize that this is a holistic thing. It is not reduced to any one particular interest group. It is for every single Barbadian. So in reality, whilst I do understand the objective here, we still have to be careful that we don't seek to present a situation where we are suggesting that there's so many people with indictable offenses that Barbadians will not be able to participate. And that is what we need to clarify, because the 30% ownership to Barbadians speaks to every single Barbadian that is interested. All right? With the leave of the Select Committee, I would want to take a few comments from the audience. I know there was a gentleman in the audience that wanted to speak earlier. If you so desire, you may do so now.
All right. I just took offense to the honorable gentleman's description of like down Black Rock.
Sir,
at the
please
mental.
give your name before
My
you.
name is Justin Diaz. Yeah. Every generation, in every generation, sir, there are people that are going to get lost, that gets lost along the way. Marijuana does not have anything or very little to do with that. Very little. This old time, oh, you can say you're mad. When we were children, when we were coming up, yeah, we believed in, we listened to that. But now that we have lived life, we see that it is life itself that some people just cannot handle and they end up down Black Rock, That's all we want to clarify, You need better arguments than those draconian arguments in this time where, as you're all saying, a lot of things are being proven of the good of marijuana. The bad of marijuana is never really proven, It's just a state of mind that people put out there to make to make it seem so. But there's no scientific proof that marijuana sends anybody to the mental, that it makes people getting more accidents than a normal person that does not. The amount of people that smoke marijuana are far less than the amount of people that do not. So if you're trying to find some correlation in accidents with who smokes and who don't, it cannot be found because there are many more people that do not smoke it than smoke it. So if you are saying among people that smoke weed is a higher thing, well, it cannot really be higher because there's a lot less people doing it.
Mr. Diaz, if I may, I don't want you to at the same time mislead the public who may be listening.
All right.
But there's a plethora of information out there with respect to marijuana use and the possible side effects, including genetically. It's not that anybody wrote it down off the top of the head, but genetically it has been proven that some groups, especially those, this is why Mr. Rock was talking about education of the public, especially those that may have a family history of psychosis or schizophrenia are more prone to that happening with marijuana use. So you're not exactly correct that people pull it out of the sky and write it down to go against you. Just to say that.
I understand where you're coming from, but if you have a underlying psychosis or anything like that, there's a lot of things that could bring that out, I just saying, Thank you anyhow. All right.
Chair, may I respond to? I just want to make one thing. When you were saying what you were saying, we differentiate indigenous use from recreational use. One, they're not the same for us. And when I spoke about the referendum, right, I said that I had no problem with determining recreational use as it is put forward. What I did say, my problem was determining my sacramental use as Rastafari, my spiritual use of the herb by referendum. I have a problem with that. So I just want to make that clarification.
Rasimba, I think you've been forceful with that point, and it is acknowledged.
I'm sorry if I can intrude on the debate at this point. I'd be grateful, Rasimba, if you could expand on it. The point about sacramental as opposed to recreational. And the reason for my asking this is because under the treaty obligation, the use of cannabis is permitted for medicinal and scientific purposes, not sacramental purposes. So regrettably, and it's not my position, but regrettably, anything other than medical or scientific falls into a third category, whatever you want to call it. It falls into a third category. It doesn't matter what name it is. But that is the prohibited use. It would help the committee, even though we are only considering medicinal and scientific, if you would be so kind as to explain to us why you have this revulsion towards treating sacramental and recreational in the same way?
Thank you, and I think that is a fair question. I think within any spiritual or religious body, I think a Christian would take an offense to saying going to church on a Sunday is recreational. There is a difference between what I hold fast as part of the essence of my being, my spirituality, than what I do for just enjoyment. My prayer, my supplication to whoever or whomever my deity, it is not a part of my recreation. You speak about the treaties in terms of things. I've been looking at the UN, a UN declaration, treaty, whatever you want to call it, on religious tolerance and rights. And it says that there should be no limitation placed on a person's religious or spiritual aspirations, their functioning, if it does not interfere with another person, the public health, you know what I mean, if it is not. So what is basically saying that if my spirituality does not affect the other person, then there should be no limitations, right? And it also speaks about things found in the Drug Act and things that there should be no limitations placed on that. And I think that is part of it. Sacramental really speaks to the meditational use of the plant. There are hundreds of plants within spiritual and religious orders, movements that are used for what we call bridging the gap between this particular space and another space. And again, this juxtaposes Western Christianity, Western religion to African religious practices, right? So it is not, for us, it is not only cannabis. There are races that use mushrooms, we fast. There are many different modalities and mediums by which we use to attain. I myself, within the order of the Nyabingi, I play a drum that is called the Kete drum. Herb is very important for me, right? As I access my deity and I play it through the drum in harmony with the chants and the dances, and you know, so it is part. That is not recreational. That is not like if I go into a party. That is something that, you know what I mean? I don't even know. My father was a Methodist minister, Reverend Leonard Rock. I grew up in the church. Religion, you know what I mean, hard or soft, was bred into me. My father, my mother would be very offended if someone had to determine her faith, right, by a public that may not even agree. You don't have to agree with me. I may not agree with gay people, but I have to respect them. You don't have to agree with me on my way, but it is not affecting you. So why are you affecting me? I would like to be able to pray in peace the way I love to pray, and I know how to pray in peace. If a man wants to pray 3 times, turn east, keep a Sabbath, whatever, that is his right, as long as it is not affecting everyone. And I think under a UN declaration, I am guaranteed that right. So that is my answer to you, Mr. Attorney General.
We had another comment from the audience.
Good afternoon to panel. I'm Nicky Latouche. Forgive me for coming late, so I haven't heard what transpired before. As you can see, I'm on dialysis, so I am sick. So therefore, the concerns that I have, I'm not speaking about it from, I have concerns about medicinal, yes, but it isn't a matter that I'm a Rasta or that I smoke ganja or I like smoking or I want smoking, all that sort of stuff. This is about truth. This is about business. This is about reality. With respect to the Honorable Mr. Franklin, I don't deal in belief. I deal in fact. I deal in statistics. I deal in research. I deal in the fact that marijuana and cannabis has been integral to the civilization for thousands of years. And I find it almost offensive when I hear people say, oh, there isn't enough research because we don't know what marijuana can do. Or the fears that people have that, oh, it will kill you and all that sort of stuff. Because then we have to say, okay, half of Jamaica dead, half of Jamaica gone crazy. All the Rastas, not just in Jamaica, but around the world, including Barbados, they're dead. They stop having children. They're crazy. These are facts. And when we begin to question, when we begin to put these sort of things into the air that, oh, well, this is dangerous or whatever, you have to say, okay, let's deal with the facts. Again, I said I deal with statistics. I find it interesting that that the gentleman could say, speak about the people who go down to Black Rock and say, oh, it drives you crazy. But how come you can't say the same thing that you've heard of people who have died from a cannabis overdose? And you know the reason you can't say that is because statistically it does not happen. Okay? Cannabis, I don't want to say it cannot kill you. Anything can kill you. But the fact of the matter is, statistically, it doesn't, it can't. Okay? Those are the facts. And anybody who does any iota of research into it will see that that is the case. Okay? The way in which cannabis works, it works on, there are two main, there's, as the gentleman said, there's the endocannabinoid system within the human body. And cannabis, there are two main aspects in there are two main receptors. There's CDB, and the CBD1 and CBD2 receptors within the human body. The CBD1 receptors are located in the brain. The CBD2 receptors are located throughout the rest of the body. THC affects the CBD1 receptors in the brain. CDB affects more or less the CDB2 receptors throughout the rest of the body. Both of them have medicinal and therapeutic aspects. Because you would understand that if you have schizophrenia, that is a brain disease. So therefore you need the things that affect the receptors in your brain and what you have to deal with for that. Now, if you have something else, let's say like cancer or like a stomach ailment, you're dealing with primarily with the CBD2 receptors within the rest of the body. So when you speak in terms of this medicinal thing and trying to separate the two, cannabis is also about the balance of the two, of THC in relation to CDB. And that is the medicinal, when you're applying those, the medicines that are applied can be extracted from CBD by itself, from THC by itself as well, and the combination thereof. So when you're having that conversation about medicinal marijuana, you cannot separate the two. And this is my thing, when we're talking about we're going to pursue a medicinal marijuana industry. And as I have spoken already about this here, you're talking about things, ideas that have been around, let's say, 10, 20 years ago, when, let's say, California said, okay, well, we can try to approach it with this medicinal thing. And that ended up being abused because people, in a lot of cases, just went to the doctor, got a prescription, and they were claiming, oh, well, we're using it for medicinal purposes. Trying to separate, the idea of separating recreational use from medicinal use to make it all so nice in this package, that ain't gonna work. Okay, it makes no sense. when you're talking about the industry, you have to be talking about a cannabis industry. And that means you're dealing with the medicines, you're dealing with the fiber, you're dealing with the whole industry itself. A lot of people don't know, but as I said, the foundation, again, I deal strictly in the truth and based on research. The world, more or less, before the 20s, 30s, thereabouts, before the introduction of the pharmaceutical industry, was based around cannabis. Every single clothes, poor people clothes, were made from cannabis. The word canvas comes from cannabis. Okay, these are facts. Again, I'm not dealing with speculation. These are facts. And the only reason why the whole industry was destroyed was because of the petrochemical industry and their desire to change the world from the dependence on hemp. And what they then did was demonize its association with marijuana. They linked it to marijuana, demonized marijuana, and said, oh, black people could make white women go crazy. And therefore, they then passed the legislation in the states to demonize marijuana. And because you can't distinguish between the two physically, just looking at it, say, oh, well, you know, you got to demonize, you got to get rid of cannabis too. You got to get rid of hemp. So therefore, we destroy the industry. These are the realities. And I find it that we are here with this little nice, oh, well, we have to be careful about certain things. I deal in truth, okay? In truth. Now, I have said already that the way in which we are pursuing this thing right now is wrong. I agree with certain aspects of it, of course, in terms of certain rules that you have when you're producing medicinal grade marijuana or medicinal grade cannabis. Because obviously, if you're producing a medicine, you should have to know exactly what its origin was, and you have to be able to trace it from beginning to end and know exactly what can affect. I agree, you need to have those rules and regulations in place for the medicinal component of it. But as I said, you can't separate medicinal and recreational. And that is for, how should I put it? It's like, okay, let's look at it like aspirin, okay? You can get aspirin over the counter. I don't have to go to a doctor every time I have a headache to tell him, well, yeah, for him to tell me, well, go on, take 2 aspirins. I don't need a prescription for that. Marijuana and cannabis can be dispensed in that way. Okay? You don't necessarily have to go to a medical doctor for every aspect of trying to be, of using cannabis. So therefore you have to look at what's happening in the States. Again, we are dealing with facts. And let's look at the trends. We're talking about bringing in restrictive legislation right now that is going to then say, let's say, get enacted next year. And as I said, it's obsolete already, but you're dealing now with a situation where big pharmaceutical companies are getting involved. Why are they getting involved? Because it kills people? The states, various states have already passed legislation that says, look, it's fine. The only thing they're waiting on now is the federal rules. And the impediment for that there, really and truly, is for banking and the sort of funds that are going to get put into it. We're talking about billions of dollars. Billions. And the idea, one of the biggest problems in Barbados is that we do not take advantage of opportunity. That is our fault. This is what we have done all the time. We fail to recognize the opportunities that are there and how best to take advantage of those opportunities. And I heard the minister speak today, and he said, oh, Barbadians are conservative. Well, I beg to differ. It's not that Barbadians are conservative. You have conservative politicians. We have people who don't want to do the changes, whether because people maintain the status quo or what have you. But the challenge is that there are things that we have to do. We have to do them now. We have to do them quickly. We have to do the research, and the research is there. As I said, I gave the panel a report already. And any reading of the report, a basic reading of the report, right, would show you, as I said, when it came to, in order to die from a marijuana overdose, they had to feed rats, like the amount of, they had to put them in the thing that's, how should I put it, bigger than this building, amount of smoke that they had to ingest in their lungs in order to die. Because the first thing that happens when you take in a lot of marijuana, you go to sleep, because that's how it works on the body. Right? So it doesn't work on the respiratory organs that, let's say, like cocaine and those sort of things do, that cause that rapid heart attack. A lot of cases, quickly as well, in terms of the people who go down Black Rock, what a lot of drug pushers do is they mix something called a blackie. They add things like cocaine to marijuana. You know why? Because the marijuana isn't addictive like that. So therefore you have to make it addictive in order for some person to be able to come back to you and get hooked on something. This is the whole thing, the insidious aspect of the whole, of having it, of the criminalization of it. Right? As I said, if you want to tell me, we know what the withdrawal symptoms are for cocaine, for example. When you see somebody trembling and going crazy, that sort of stuff. Tell me what the withdrawal symptoms are for marijuana. Point out them to me. Right? These are, again, I don't deal in belief. I deal in research.
Please bring it home, because we have other presentations.
Okay. No, you know my views on it already, as I said. And with great respect, I believe that when you speak in terms of the cannabis, you have to be talking about the industry, and this is where we have to take it. We have to have that discussion about the entire industry. And the challenges also in terms of this question of people whose records can be involved or who can be involved and all that sort of stuff. Again, these are issues and conversations that have to be had. Okay? That's all for now.
Thank you, Brother Latouche. And I can hear the level of research that went in. I am going to take, hold on. Unfortunately, we have another presentation to take. So I'm going to take two more, and then we'll take another presentation. We will come back to the audience after. So hold your thoughts. Take a pin for the moment. Ma'am, you had a short intervention. Okay, after you, we will take Dr. Kohal, and then we will take the next presentation.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Ariana Marshall. It's a question/comment for consideration. How was the term medical defined in the bill? From what I recall, it was briefly defined as whatever a pharmacist prescribes. And I know in reviewing other policies, usually medical is defined in terms of the percentage of THC or CBD. So it may not be a question to be answered now, but it's something that I hope is considered, because the concept of quality, not only of cannabis, but also what is grown in our soils. I'm an environmental scientist. So that's one thing I want us to stay focused on, how we're gonna quantify it, and for the public to understand what has happened already. I'm also very concerned about how local knowledge is being valued. It's very concerning to hear that people who have taken the risk to develop an understanding locally are being, basically their information is being taken. And even right now, all of this is free information, sheerly, and people are hearing what is happening. We know that this is gonna be publicized. So I'm very concerned about how local knowledge is being valued, particularly people who have used and farmers. And as a scientist, I want to make it clear that social science is science. And when you interview people, that is real science, and there's extensive research on what cannabis has done for people. That brings me to the second question, and that is, how was this $100,000 fine decided on? I heard the minister say in Parliament that it was 15 times the value, which is even more concerning because Barbados has very high costs compared to the rest of the Caribbean and the value of it. So I think, is it either or, which one is higher, which one is lower? Just those are the decisions which I would like us to better understand in this public forum, if they're answered here or it's made clearer when the bill goes forward.
Dr. Kohal.
Pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, audience. Good afternoon, distinguished members of the panel. My name is Damian Kohal. I'm here in the capacity of Deputy Dean Preclinical, University of the West Indies in the Faculty of Medicine. And I'm also here as a senior pharmacologist who have spent quite a number of years from my PhD thesis days investigating the medicinal value of Caribbean plants. In fact, I wrote a book about the medicinal plants of Barbados. I listened to the contributions of the panel, and I also listened to the contributions of the audience, and all points were noted, and I must say that I appreciate the level of education that has been transmitted through the general population of Barbados, because I was quite fascinated at Rasimba's presentation and his answers to the questions that he was asked. I also note that there is definitely a significant amount of knowledge by the distinguished panel. My contribution to the discussion is to highlight that the University of the West Indies, we stand committed to working with the government of Barbados in the rolling out of this bill. We support the careful thought that has been placed in the development of the bill, and we want to encourage not only the government but also members of the audience and the wider population that the approach that has been outlined in the bill is very palatable, and if we work together, I am quite sure that we'll be able to achieve that common goal. Like the bill and like the minister's contribution in the reading of the bill last Friday, or well, a couple of Fridays ago, the vision was outlined very clearly, and it's a vision which speaks a lot about the patient-centric nature at which this bill is being rolled out. We have to, of course, take heed about the concerns of patients who can benefit from medical cannabis or drugs derived from cannabis. But I believe also that the bill speaks a lot about the emphasis which has been placed in ensuring public safety. We believe that working with university and other stakeholders, the University of the West Indies in particular, and other stakeholders, maybe local and international, that we can develop not only a vibrant medical cannabis industry, but possibly the best medical cannabis industry in the Caribbean region. And how do we plan to achieve this? We plan to achieve this by looking at the unique elements of what makes Barbados Bajan, right? Talking about our soil, talking about our educated and highly skilled population. I believe that we can create a highly skilled, certified workforce to benefit from this industry. We can also create, through the advancement of research, very new modalities for the treatment of current disorders being considered as qualifying conditions, but other conditions that have not benefited from significant research towards promoting the use of medical cannabis for treatment. So with that said, again, I would just like to reiterate my appreciation of the fact that I was invited to be a part of this very important session. I respect all the contributions made by the audience and also by the panelists, and I believe that if we work together with that vision in mind, we should be able to put forth a medical cannabis industry that is considered the center of excellence within the Caribbean and globally. Thank you.
At this point, Ras Simba and Ras Felicia. I want to thank you all for your participation in today's presentation. I want to thank you for your participation this afternoon, and we do look forward to further interaction with you as we go forward. Eddie, Minister Hinkson, for a quick response.
No, Rasimba and Ms. Holder, just a quick question. What's the approximate population of members of the Rastafarian community in Barbados?
I have heard it put at around 4,000. We have never done any real statistical work to give, factual numbers. So that is just an estimation, and that came from, I think that was like a US website or something like that. But we, in terms of the community, we have never done anything. I know we have thousands of Rastas in Barbados. So I would say roughly around 6,000 would be like a good estimation, right? And that is just it. My final, what I would just like to plug, we have been approached by the university. I've been approached by Dr. Hunt. Dr. Kohal could tell you this. My thing is that, as Rastafari, we use the herb. So there is a situation where I may be working with the university on one hand, but running from the police on the other hand, right? So this is a very serious something for me. So what I am saying is that in the interim, and I have said it before, Minister Ware is aware, and he knows what I'm going to say, I have been asking for amnesty on arrest for possession of small amounts and cultivation of small amounts while all this determination is going on. Because I would hate, because I am not prepared to put down my liberty and my use of cannabis because of a law I haven't done for over 30 years. I'm not going to do it now. But I would hate for myself to be able to miss the opportunity to work with the university and others in the development of this industry because I remain a criminal in your society. Thank you.
We will now take our... I'm going to take all the presentations that we have for this afternoon, but given the time constraints, I want to move to the presentation from BAMP because they have another assignment, and if we can agree, we can go to the presentation of BAMP. We will then open the floor for discussion and come back to the other presentations. Is that agreed, committee?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay, so we will take the presentation from BAMP. Who are the representatives of BAMP? Dr. De Silva, come to the table.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, all. First, let me thank the committee for affording BAMP this opportunity to have some input, and I might add that it's been long overdue. And let me assure all here that BAMP has been acting solely out of concern to this issue of medical cannabis. And unfortunately, to the contrary, it is my opinion that the profession is being increasingly perceived as being part of an evil cabal rather than being helpful. I have submitted comments on the proposed act. I will admit that we had limited time in which to do it. I don't know if members of the committee have a copy, but as far as my comments go, it relates to medicinal cannabis. And the question I ask is this to be interpreted as separate and distinct from the synthetic preparations that we have for clinical use. It is my understanding that the Drug Service is in the process of procuring certain drugs, and to the best of my knowledge, most of them would be synthetic preparations. I see nothing in the bill to address this issue, I just wanted to know how that fits into the scheme of things. Minister in the Act speaks to the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security. And with all due respect, I'm wondering if this is to be assumed that the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security now has the responsibility for health-related matters. Am I to interpret this as an attempt to divorce the profession from the Ministry of Health and marry it to the Ministry of Food and Wellness, Food and Food Security? We are aware of the various treaties, and our concern are based primarily on a lot of these regulatory functions that will have to be put in place in terms of collecting data to be passed on to the international organization. In the Act, it speaks to protection from personal liability, and from what I see, it sort of protects the people who are designing this industry. It doesn't speak to those who prescribe and those who administer the product. And it is our recommendation that users should have some responsibility here, and that users should at least be required to sign the document that states that they understand that consumption may lead to harm that is not currently known. The document also speaks to the authority, and in particular, it speaks to where required, assist with the provision of analytical services. I may be naive or ignorant, but I do not believe that at this point in time there's analytical adequacy in the country to monitor conventional drugs, far less a new product on the horizon, or a series of products on the horizon. Our concerns are really, again, not only with regulatory changes to allow the access to cannabis and cannabinoids for medical use, but I would certainly urge the committee to think of all the other risks and benefits for the patient, and to take into account the potential broader social and public health impacts. And some have been discussed here, the question of impaired driving, the question as to whether or not people will now see the legalization of cannabis as a medicinal product, that it is safe, and whether or not it would be construed by some people as a useful thing to do, and there is some evidence that there may be increases in the use of the drug consequent to such a decision. So that's about our input. I know it's a controversial issue. I think it's an important issue. Whether we accept it or not, marijuana is here to stay, unless there's some revolution somewhere to the contrary. And I will promise everyone here that BAMP will act in the interest of the public of Barbados. Bearing in mind that we are presently constrained by the fact that we cannot prescribe medications. There are ethical and medical legal borders to prescription of drugs. At present, we are only confined to prescribing the drugs that have been approved by a regulatory authority. And until such time as what is being proposed have been shown to be efficacious and safe and otherwise in the conditions for which they have been prescribed, as physicians, our hands will be tied. Thank you. I won't leave this yet, sir.
I want to thank you for your presentation. The matter is up for discussion. We will first take comment from the leader of the opposition, and then we will take any other comments from the select committee before we go to the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Silva began by lamenting the fact that the Barbados Association of Medical Professionals was afforded only short notice to make a presentation. It would appear to me that that is an institution with which this committee should really more fully and critically interface on this matter. And I am wondering if the association would be disposed to being given more time, such as the committee is now properly established, making a fuller presentation, either in document form or by another appearance. I think that it is important that we hear as fully from that institution as possible. There are matters in this bill which the brief presentation, as spoken to just now, clearly did not address. I have not even seen the document such as has been presented as yet. There are matters relative to the issue of non-institutional care or treatment of persons, which is addressed in this bill, which I think threw up some challenges, if one especially considers the culture in which we operate. There are issues with definitions in this bill. I have been led to a point of confusion over the use of terms like pharmacies as opposed to dispensary and prescription as opposed to recommendation. And I really would want to be better briefed by those who are on the front lines of these matters. And I don't think the short presentation just now treated to that.
Yeah, my presentation has been short because I'm limited for time as well. I have to leave. I have another meeting at 2, so I apologize for any brevity.
The very last sentence in your presentation to us, you speak about poisonings, accidental. I'm hearing today that worst that can happen to you if you use marijuana is that you will sleep. I prefer a medical opinion to, I might sound offensive again, but I prefer a medical opinion. So could you enlighten us about these poisonings that you were speaking to?
Well, that poisoning I refer to in my thing, it's very well documented, particularly in the United States, that in states where it has been legalized, there has been a tremendous increase in emergency room attendances of children who have accidentally used marijuana and marijuana products. And as a word of caution there to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, I think the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security should pay particular attention to the development of the industry where it relates to edibles. That's going to be a huge problem. The food scientists are already working to provide things. We can now go to the movies and get marijuana-based popcorn. The Canadians are now talking about marijuana-based beer. Coca-Cola, I think, has jumped in on the industry. We have marijuana-based gummy bears that are targeted for children. We have marijuana-based ice cream. It's not called a Klondike bar, which is a sandwich of ice cream and chocolate. It's called a Klondike bar. So marketing now has sleight of hand in the food industry, and we have to be particularly concerned about that as well.
Dr. De Silva, I do recognize your time constraints, but I do believe that it will be in order for you to come back and do a full presentation if you so desire. And if you so desire, please express your desire now so that we can get the select committee to move a motion for that to take place.
Well, the desire of BAMP has been there expressly since last year when we started this whole thing in motion. We started off with a public forum on the issue. So we will maintain that interest and we will provide for your ministry as well as the Ministry of Health. I would like to see a closer collaboration between you and the man on your right.
Okay, so we will invite Dr. De Silva or a representative of BAMP to come back and do a more detailed presentation. All right.
I just want one question before you go. Yes. Just one question before
Minister
you go.
Ford.
I don't want to play devil advocate today, but you were talking about the increase in emergency situations where when medical marijuana became illegal in America and different places. I'm asking you one question today. Do you see patients currently in the hospital from alcohol toxicity or alcohol intoxicity or persons who are inebriated by the use of alcohol or who have adverse reactions from the use of alcohol?
I don't work in the hospital, but
you just said that in emergencies and the emergency room, you see persons that were
not me,
having
sir.
Adverse reactions to marijuana.
Not me, sir. I said that in states that have legalized marijuana, there have been increases in admissions in emergency room for children in those states. Okay. I don't know that the emergency room has been astute to collect those kinds of statistics for you, but I don't know if they'll be willing to share it with me, but I will certainly, if they do that, share it with you, sir.
Is it also not a fact that there is less inhibitions with persons who are intoxicated, inebriated, or drunk by using alcohol than with persons who use marijuana?
I cannot speak to that, Minister. I don't have those facts. And there's somebody who got up previously and said they speak to facts.
But it's also evidence to suggest that there's more maladaptive patterns and behaviors and antisocial behavior with persons who use alcohol than marijuana.
Yes, but
so any medical evidence is there to suggest that with the usage of marijuana, you can see persons that end up at the accident emergency, and you get persons who fell asleep at the wheel and things. I'm saying the evidence is already there to suggest that alcohol, which is being consumed on a regular basis, is already causing these things. And evidence is there to suggest that there is more and maladaptive patterns and behaviors associated with persons who use alcohol from their antisocial behavior than persons that use marijuana.
I'm not here to defend the use of alcohol, Minister. I am just going to suggest that alcohol and marijuana is a more dangerous mix than you can ever dream about.
The combination. I just want to bring that to the table.
Further, I would think that if you are concerned about alcohol and its issue, the breathalyzer test is long overdue as well.
Dr. De Silva, thanks for your presentation. But just to clarify one thing, you mentioned in your presentation about the fact that the Act speaks to medicinal cannabis as an entity requiring a product license or authorization versus a synthetic drug requiring drug approval by a regulatory authority. That was a source of confusion, I must say, for the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And this was indicated in one of the earlier iterations of the bill. But what it is really referring to here is the raw material, and that is why the establishment of the medicinal cannabis industry is anchored in the Ministry of Agriculture. So it's the raw material rather than what we would refer to as the medicinal cannabis as regulated by the Barbados Drug Formulary.
Dr. De Silva, I really want to sincerely thank you for the time you came and presented. I look forward to hearing a more detailed presentation from you as we go forward.
Thank you, Chair. I will do so. I mean, I don't know how long it will take me to do it, but I will try.
We have another presentation. Ifuru Gooden come to the table? Okay.
Hello, good morning. Sorry. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ifru Gooden. I'm a normal bystander citizen come to participate in the activities today. My concerns and my little take on it is that we as Bajans is a normal population in this third world Caribbean country. We have to look at what we have to do for ourselves and not what is put forward by the open countries. Now, going forward in the future, for me, the industry that y'all would like to go forward in, they're just going to need a supply and a quantity of the marijuana of its sort to help with the processing. The marijuana that's made a lot of oils, it's helping a lot of ways, which ain't all of we done establish that. But the same way how we have coconut vendors and we do not have coconut farms, the same way how we have breadfruit and potato sauce going on every Saturday and we do not have breadfruit farms, we are going to need people to supply the quantity. We have children. No, I can start at 19, 20, 21, 22. We have youth that are coming out of school and are doing nothing. You understand? They're just trying to say we as a people could say, okay, we making the bill go on. The forwardness would be to let each and every individual help in a way to bring in the quantity that you need. Meaning that in the future, instead of godchildren running around doing nothing, you will have a good 20,000 of them inside the yards dealing with the quantity that the person say he would like as medicinal or whatever, not medicinal, a quantity that coming into the government. The government will be dealing with it. You grow tree or right now in Barbados, a pound of Bajan is about $5,000. Let me get rid of a realistic thing. A pound of Bajan is $5,000. Now, if you get the normal Bajan children that are doing nothing at home and looking to rob one of rich people that don't smoke no weed, when they get older, you understand? We need to start with that. Put it in the children's hand. Let it grow a little 3, let it grow a little 4, let it grow a little 5. Let it bring it into the institution. Right now, the men got no weed wrappers. Right now, weed oil. Wait, let me hit one over there. A lady came in from overseas and she had these selling for 50 Bajan. Now, if you see the size is the bead oil that frozen, it is frozen or keeping a state. When you open it, it's one little strip. Of course, it's empty now. It is stated medical purposes only. Medical purposes only. Yes, this is a product that she bring in. Now, my mother had this thing in she feet like. I don't know if it's arthritis or what, but she spent a lot of money at the doctor again, x-rays and all but nothing. I went, I get it, and I slice it. I slice it in small little portions and give it to her because she was smoking weed from about 16 years old and she's 55 now and she continues every day, daily. Cannot stop. And I give it to her in the morning so she doesn't abuse me when she gets stressed out. Real thing, this is help. But mainly my main point is to let it go for all of the youth. When I ain't gonna deal with it, let the youth deal with it and keep the youth off the street. Keep the youth off the street. Ain't on the street now. Ain't there? It all know out there, it is there. Make it possible that everybody could grow in the backyard and wanna dealing with the quantity. Get them not a 5,000 I say, get them a little 2,000. Right now one vendor in Barbados is $500 and something and the paycheck is $250. So one could work out how one can get robbed and how one can get treated when there's ways that one can help these children. Are you serious? It might seem like a laughing matter, but you all do not deal with it today. You all wasn't dealing with it yesterday. There's just a forum that you all plan to decide whatever. that other people done decide already. I don't want to be last, I want to be first. I want a weed rapper. I want a weed rapper that's selling. This is $50 billion for a slice. Just, I was hurted at first. It was 100. I didn't want to tell you, but I had to go and tell the man, listen, I can't give you 100. Give me $50, please, please. You understand? So if this little thing is $50, we got weed rappers that nobody ain't making yet. We got the weed oil, the industry. When I want industry, they got machines that I can look up on the internet, and you can see, oh, we making weed oil. Oh, these making wrappers, and these is jobs for these children that ain't doing nothing. Jah Rastafari. Anywho, thank you. Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you very much, and to keep it in consideration, because you all people do not deal with it. You don't know how it is work, but they got children out there. I ain't always gonna be children. They're gonna got big men and big people that already on the street dealing with the weed, selling it in pounds and acres and yards. The application just simple. The newspaper say, well, today we be putting out applications for people that need to grow weed in quantity. You need to get the application, your license, get your picture, get your paper. You come in, and if you get catch without the card and you growing weed, well, so be it. You get arrested, you do not have the proper paperwork or whatever for it. But if you could provide a small little saying quick, provide saying quick and get it on the go. They got oil. The oil is most important these days. My sister died with cancer, and she used to use a lot of it. She come from Canada, and she bring in a lot of the products that you use. They even got capsules like the 7 days capsules that I could also make that they're bringing in with the weed oil too. So even if when I look at it to help one of the Bajans, look at it to help making money for the children, not even for the children, for oneself. Because when I'm done, I want to realize that 3 and 3 make 4. I want to make $1 billion in half a year off of it. Eat a food. We want things. We want proper housing. The money that gonna come in, it could help to do different things for we as a people. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Sister Gooden, I want to thank you for your contribution. I do believe that after hearing your contribution, we can all agree that we have to move at pace if we're going to take full advantage of the potential from this industry. And whilst we do the consultations, we must bear in mind that time is not necessarily on our side if we're going to meet the expectations of all of you who came forward this afternoon and presented. And the one thing that I would want to take away from the presentations that I've heard so far is that most people who presented are interested in the industry being developed. Is a question of how people will be facilitated. And to that extent, I do concur with the point you made about making sure that we move to be part of an industry that is growing and growing rapidly. So I want to thank you for your contribution. I want to adjourn the sit-in for suspense, for 15 minutes. Refreshments are on the outside. We will come back in 15 minutes time. 15 minutes gives us 10 past 2. Quarter past? Well, the clock is slow. All right, 2:15.